O professor Zé Elias disse que iria vir, mas eu acho que ele ainda não está aqui, não é? Pelo menos não pelo
Bom,
nome.
se calhar temos que avançar, não é?
Pois.
Ok. Já temos mais pessoas que entraram agora. Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. We are going to start this section. We will have just one paper that will be presented by Dante Viana Jr. The paper is, the title of the paper is Disentangling the Association Between ESG and Analysts' Forecasts. Dante will have about 20 minutes, okay? Then I will discuss your paper, and then the other persons may also have some comments or questions, okay? So then the stage is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for coming to this session, for your interest in our paper. This paper is actually the result of a collaboration with my colleagues, Professor Zé Elias de Almeida from the Federal University of Espírito Santo, and also our friend, Professor Devendra Kale from the University of Rhode Island in the United States. And as you can see through the title, we are here discussing about ESG and analyst forecasts, right? But let me please spend some time here in my presentation talking about one of the most important issues in our paper, which is the motivation, right? Well, it's not hard to find in our days information on the relevance of ESG investments, right? Or how much firms will spend money in environment, social, and governance aspects, right? I would say that if we look to newspapers about the topic, we can see almost like a flood of information about many aspects of ESG aspects, right? And how the market seems to consider this practice a investment and the consequences of such practice to many different types of stakeholders. But just for you to have an idea about the astronomical numbers of ESG initiatives, I have here some data by Bloomberg saying that ESG investments are expected to exceed around $50 trillion by 2025. And this data suggests the relevance of these type of investments in our days, right? In our paper specifically, we are not interested in how ESG directly affect firm value per se, right? Or how the market or how ESG is a variable important to to determine firm value overall. We are interested here in our paper on the importance that stakeholders give to these investments. Actually, there are many stakeholders interested in this type of investments, such as investors, governments, consumers, analysts, and banks. But in our paper specifically, we are interested in how one specific type of those stakeholders could be interested in this type of information, specifically the analysts, and how analysts could eventually be interested in ESG firms' performance in order to potentially incorporate this information in their predictions about firms' future performance, right? And if analysts in the end care about firms' ESG investments in their forecast models. So specifically concerning our research question, though, we are here analyzing how firms' ESG performance affects analyst forecasts. But more specifically, we are disentangling here the analyst forecasts, investigating whether the effect of firms' ESG performance is different among two different types of predictions made by analysts, specifically revenues forecasts and EPS forecasts, right? And whether ESG performance affect differently these two types of forecasts made by analysts, namely concerning revenues and EPS, right? And we have here a theoretical discussion suggesting a potential difference between the association, concerning the association between ESG and these two types of forecasts. But let me be more specifically. The literature provides a consistent empirical evidence. There are a lot of empirical evidence on the benefits associated with high levels of ESG performance by firms. For example, suggesting that there is a positive association between ESG initiatives and a negative effect of these initiatives actually on lower levels of cost of capital, lower levels of information asymmetry, high quality of boards, and even improvements in firm performance when firms are spending more money or even make high levels of disclosure concerning ESG initiatives. But we also have some literature saying that or discussing about the association between ESG and analyst forecasts, right? For example, this paper in 2012 will suggest that non-financial disclosure could be associated with lower analyst EPS forecasts errors in an international sample of 31 countries. This another paper in 2014 will suggest that more social responsibility disclosure could be translated into a tighter consensus in EPS forecasts as well. And also this is another paper in 2017 will say that analysts care about the use of CSR disclosure by firms, okay? And if we look to this literature overall, we can see that those studies seems to be focused on EPS estimates specifically, and also in ESG disclosure aspects. So taking this into account, our complement to previous literature is discussing about how ESG performance actually affects analyst forecast. But even more importantly, I would say how this association between ESG and analyst forecast could eventually be different if we analyze separately analysts' revenues and analysts' EPS forecast errors. We have two different hypotheses considering these two different types of analyst forecasts, right? And this is what I would talk to you now. So from one perspective, if we imagine ESG initiatives and their impacts on consumers and investors overall, we can see a literature suggesting that high levels of ESG performance could, in a way, be translated in a better engagement between firms with their clients, resulting in a boost of firms' revenues. And there are many empirical evidence on this issue. So this could be according to our predictions, easier to be perceived by customers, and even more important to our discussion to analysts. So analysts could easily detect this effect of ESG in as a cornerstone to consumers that could result in a better firm's revenue or high levels of firm's revenues. And this is translated in our first hypothesis that the level of ESG performance is negatively associated with the level of analyst revenues forecast errors. Or in other words, analysts make better predictions on firms' revenues when those firms are engaged in high levels of ESG initiatives. But from the other hand, the costs related with ESG activities could be not very well directly observed by analysts. So if we look, for example, to an income statement, it's not the expenses related with ESG, for example, is not directly observed by analysts. So analysts could eventually wonder, where is ESG here, income statements. And this consequently could be harder to be observed or even detected by analysts, resulting in our second hypothesis that the level of ESG is positively associated with analysts' EPS forecast error, the opposite that we have been predicting on analysts' revenues forecast. Okay. We talking a little bit about our design. We are testing those two hypotheses based on a sample of US firms between 2011 and 2018, which resulted in a sample of around 12,000 firm year observations. We have here a general model where forecast analyst errors are our dependent variable and ESG performance our main independent one. But given that we have two different types of forecast errors, we have a first model where error sales analyst forecasts are the dependent variable. In ESG here, we expect to find a negative coefficient. And the second model where arrow EPS is the dependent one, we expect to find a positive coefficient, right? These are our two specifically models. The dependent variable forecast errors, both sales and EPS, are measured based on a large stream of previous literature, specifically measuring them by the difference between the actual and the forecast sales and EPS errors, okay? The independent variable is measured here using ESG scores from Refinitiv. And here you have an idea about how this score is measured by Refinitiv, where the database uses around almost 200 of measures to develop the final index of ESG, right? And this is for many firms worldwide, and consequently making this index very used by previous literature. Well, talking about our results specifically, right? Our results here shows concerning the descriptive statistics that the ESG projects is around 53 between 0 and 100, right? On average, very aligned with previous studies based on ESG Refinitiv score in the US market. I'm going to skip this part just because I don't have too much time, but talking specifically about our regression results, right? Our main findings will demonstrate that when we are considering the error sales as our dependent variable, we can observe here that the variable ESG has a negative coefficient, considering or not the control variables. But when we are analyzing the variable error EPS, we don't find a significant of this ESG performance variable. We also proceeded in some additional analysis, splitting the ESG index in each of those three components, and we basically find the same results. Considering arrow sales, the main independent variables here have a negative coefficient, but considering arrow EPS as the dependent variable, none of those components have a significant coefficient. We also proceeded in some robustness and additional analysis. For example, considering two-dimensional cluster adjustments, and also considering forecasts in 1, 2, or 3 years ahead, or even taking into account firm fixed effects. And we consistently have found the same results, right? So to conclude, we therefore are analyzing here the role of ESG performance on analyst forecast errors. and our results overall suggest that ESG seems to be incorporated in sale forecast, but no evidence that these investments could be used by analysts in their models concerning EPS predictions. So we are here shedding some lights, some new lights on the growing demand to the understanding of such type of investment by firms and how analysts could eventually incorporate this information when they are making predictions about sales and EPS forecasts. But more importantly, we are also providing an important discussion about the benefits that a more transparency concerning ESG costs could result, therefore, in a benefit actually to analysts when they are making predictions about economic performance of firms, specifically concerning EPS measures. So that's it. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm open now to your considerations. Thank you. My camera seems to be, a blur here, but I'm listening you very well. That is the most important, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Now I'm going to present some, I will discuss your study. I will share with you some concerns that I have about your research, about this specific paper, and I will do some comments in order to make it possible to improve the paper. In general, I enjoyed to read this paper. The paper analyzes a very important and a very interesting topic. The paper is also very well written, and my comments and my suggestions will be made with the aim of make possible for you to improve the paper if you agree with my suggestions. Now I will share one file. Let's see. Can you see my presentation? Do you see the slides?
Yeah, very well.
Okay, so regarding your research question, you said that your research question is how ESG performance affects analysts' forecasts. However, when we say that our research question is to analyze how something, we are trying to understand a process. And in my opinion, based on the paper and based on what is written in the paper, you do not understand in this specific research, you don't want to analyze a process. You don't want to analyze how the ESG performance affects the earnings forecasts. I think that what you want to do is answer a question like, does the ESG performance affects analysts' forecasts, and not how it works, okay? Because if your question is how, you should use a structural equation model with a mediating variable. And this is not what you are doing in your research design. So my opinion is that maybe you should rewrite your research question, not the research design, but the way as you present the research question, okay? Regarding the hypothesis, you have two hypotheses. And you write about the ESG, this corporate sustainability reporting, and so on. And my suggestion is that the differences and the similarities between the ESG and CSR should be better explained in this section of the paper. Another thing that I suggest you to try to better explain in this section is the difference between the ESG performance and ESG disclosures. I think that this should be more clear in this hypothesis development section. Continuing with the hypothesis, I agree with your hypothesis for one hand, but I think that they should be better justified, because I think that the current argument is quite speculative. I think that the justification of the hypothesis should be better justified, and it should be justified based on the scientific literature. So in my opinion, you have a good paper, a good research, but you should work more in order to better justify your hypothesis, okay? Another thing is that you write in this section that, even though a greater ESG engagement can improve firm sales through better customer relationships and consequently helping analysts to better forecast revenues. But one thing is in the improvement of the sales, and another thing is the improvement in the analyst's sales forecast errors. And I think that sometimes there is a confusion between these two concepts, okay? Regarding this, maybe you can look to the resource-based view and try to see if you can use this resource-based view in order to allow you to better explain your hypothesis, okay? Okay. Regarding the sampling data, you say in the paper that we use US firm level data. Our sample covers the years between 2011 and 2018. But the sample covers, or the data covers. One thing is the data and another thing is the sample. I would say table 1 includes data regarding 2011 and 2018. Another thing is, you say that your sample or data covers the period between 2011 and 2018, but table 1 includes data regarding 2019. I don't know if this is a mistake, or if it is not a mistake, you should discuss this and explain this, okay? Another possibility is to include data regarding 2020 and 2021 in order to see the role of ESG performance in a highly uncertain environment, which is the COVID-19. That's a suggestion, maybe an additional test, I don't know. Sorry. Okay. Regarding the empirical models, you say that you use controls, and controls is a vector of control variables, including, for example, size, leverage, and so on. But you do not explain in the paper why did you choose these control variables. My suggestion is that you select the control variables based on the literature on analysts' forecasts and look for the omitted variables, because you have a very low R-squared. Maybe there are some omitted variables that you are not included in your model, and a way of solving this problem is looking to the literature on analyst forecasts and try to find other control variables, more control variables to include in the paper. Okay. Regarding the results, you say that the ESG performance is negatively associated or not associated with the firms, with the analysts' sales or EPS forecast errors. And my question regarding your results is, which is not, for me, it is not clear in the paper, what is the stream of literature for which you aim to contribute? And how do you contribute to this stream of literature? So I think, or I suggest that you work on this and that you clearly present what is the stream of literature for which you aim to contribute and what is your contribution, okay? Finally, I have some minor issues regarding the writing. For example, there are some sentences that are difficult to understand. If you look to the abstract, this sentence is difficult to understand because you say, more specifically, while the ESG initiatives, for disentering the costs related to ESG, something is missing here, in my opinion. And some citations are not included or are presented with typos in the reference list. And I included here some examples, okay? But these are only some minor issues that you may see in order to improve your paper. And I wish you good luck, all the best with this paper, which is very good. And I expect that you continue to work in this paper and to develop the paper in order to improve it. And I wish you success with the publication based on this paper. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Isabel. I wrote here the majority part of your contributions. I'm very glad for that. Well, I agree with you about the way that the research question is written in this draft of the paper, in this current form that the paper is right now. I think that we could eventually invest more time about the way that we present the research question throughout the whole paper. We one thing that we have been discussing is about the issue on the difference between disclosure and performance. Being honest with you, I'm not very sure that if we should or not comment in the paper about this difference. This is something that we have been wondering. But maybe if we decide to insist in such difference, maybe we can make this discussion clearly, right? About and this is related to the other point concerning our contribution to previous literature, because there are already many papers, not too much, but many many papers on this association between ESG and analyst forecast, but the majority of them, if not all of them, are related only to EPS forecasts. I think that our main contribution here is about the difference between the forecasts among EPS and sales. I think that this is our main contribution, and not maybe the disclosure and the performance aspects, the difference between these two aspects of ESG. Yeah, I think that this is the main discussions here, right? And I really appreciate the time that you spent in order to find those typos and those other mining issues. Thank you very much for making this contribution to our paper. But I would like to ask you something, if I can, of course. Do you think that our paper actually is an accounting paper or a finance paper? Is a paper that could be eventually well received in accounting journal or not? This is my question. If you could, if I could ask you that.
I think that this paper is in the border between accounting and finance. I would say that this is more a finance study than an accounting study. But I would submit this to an accounting journal.
Okay.
Or for example, you may try to submit this to an accounting and finance journal, because there are lots of journals that are journals of accounting and finance. Maybe you can submit this to this kind of journals.
Yeah, sure.
Because
well,
we are analyzing the performance with analysts' forecasts errors. I would say that this is in the border. And if you submit this to an accounting and finance journal, you will have not problems with the submission. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point. Thank you for your suggestion. Well, that's it for me concerning your points. Thank you very much once again.
Okay, thank you. Now, does someone want to make a question or add some comments? Please feel free to share with Dante your comments or your opinion about this paper.
Zelius is here with us, by the way. Hi, Zelius. I'm not sure if he can turn on his mic.
I'm doing a new job here, a new role here.
Oh my goodness. Oh, this is amazing.
But thank you, Isabel. Thank you a lot for your comments. Grateful.
We cannot hear you.
Oh no.
Yeah, I can hear him actually.
Yeah.
I cannot hear.
Because I have a one phone here.
Yeah, but don't worry. We know that you are there.
Yeah, but I follow the discussion, the comments. I enjoyed a lot. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
So,
okay.
Does someone want to add a comment, make a question? Did you enjoy the presentation? Do you think this is promising work? There is a question here. Do you think ISB standards in sustainability disclosure will change the analyst's work?
Wow, this is a very interesting question. Well, I think that the role of ISSB will be very important concerning all the information that we have on our hands currently. But I think that is a question that we need to wait more time to answer, right? We are in a very premature stage to say something concrete about the role of the ISSB specifically to analyst works. But I would say that yes, but it's a very it's too early to say something specifically about that, I would say.
I may add that one thing is the sustainability disclosure, and another thing is the sustainability performance. And I'm going back to that discussion between, are you analyzing sustainability disclosure or are you analyzing sustainability performance? Okay.
Yeah, this is the same issue. I agree with you, because if we think the performance the performance index by Refinitiv is based on the disclosure aspect, right? And this is here something endogenous, right? But yeah, if we I think that from the strategic way, it's not very good to shed light about this issue, but we need to define here our strategy, right? Or to focus only on the difference between FPS and sales, and yeah, it's something that we need to define.
Okay.
Okay.
So thank you, Alexandre, for your. Lucelma would like to ask something.
Hi, hello, Professor Isabel.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Okay, I just want to say, Dante, that you helped me actually, because I presented yesterday a project relating ESG with cash holdings in controversial industries. And we were discussing about using the ESG performance from Thomson Reuters as a proxy for CSR. And so I already know that some papers they do. Actually, they say that it's the same thing, but some literatures say that they are not the same thing. So to be conservative, I will just go to my article and I will take all that part that says CSR performance and I will say ESG performance and I will rewrite my text. So thank you so much. I always had this question in my mind, and now it's clear that yes, I do have to separate both things and not saying that they are the same. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for your comment. When I was reading this literature, it became very clear to me that there is a difference between these two concepts. But as you mentioned it, some studies will say there is the same thing. But yeah, I think that we need to be more, precise concerning the terms, maybe, just to avoid, controversial aspects, especially by reviewers, of course. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Lucelma, for participating.
Thank you, Professor Isabel. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure to meet you again.
Pleasure to meet you. I already have a boy, a 2-year-old boy. A boy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the time is passing by.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, very good, very good.
So now, does someone would like to add a question, make a question, or share with us a comment? Okay, so I think that we can finish. I would like to thank Dan for presenting your excellent paper. I would like to thank all the other participants in this panel, and enjoy the night. Okay.
Thank you very much,
It was a
Professor,
pleasure to
once
be
again.
here, and bye-bye to everyone.
See you all, guys. Good luck. Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye.